Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth, the wisdom resound in the Retic Rundown. We're breaking new ground. From the jungle's deep to the captive scene, Retic rule the world if you know what I mean. With patterns so bold and sizes extreme, in the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth and let the wisdom resound. In the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Unlocking secrets of the serpentine kings, sharing knowledge, stories, everything it brings. From breeders to keepers, we pull the strings in the Retic Rundown. Hear the echo rings. Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth and let the wisdom resound. In the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Welcome, Retic lovers. Welcome, Retic lovers.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to episode 12 of the Retic Rundown, and this is going to be a good one. You guys know, if you've been following the last 3 episodes or the last 2 episodes, we've been discussing what it takes to be a good Retic breeder. Honestly, of everything that we've talked about, I think it applies across the board, just to be a good breeder of any reptile. But for sure, we're going to talk with some big guys today. I'm super stoked for this one. First off, though, I want to say thanks for Mike in the background, making everything happen with Herp Collectors Network and hosting us here. And then I just want to go through real quick and say hey to everybody that I see. So we got Marcus and Tiffany. What's going on? James, how's it going? Tim's in here. Jason Felt, what's up, buddy? Jay Lunsford's in here. What's going on? I see Heartland. What's happening, Jordan? Brian's in here with D-Lock. We got Katie. Hey, Katie. Jennifer Valentine, everyone of Mod Exotics. She's in here. Golly, I'm not like, you guys are making it hard. I'm gonna have to really be on my game. All these people. Brian, what's happening with Heathen Hatchery? Got Balls and Strikes. RO. Ryan, what's happening, buddy? I'll see you next weekend. I'm hoping. All right, Balls and Strike Pythons and Lead Cook. Guys, thank you all so much for joining us. Everyone else that comes in, watches after the fact, that doesn't get it live, y'all are awesome too. So just as a reminder, on this channel, we support USARK Florida. So go out there and make sure we're doing our donations and backing it up and sending those letters, helping out Phil. And, anytime he posts a photo of the gym, you guys, I don't know if you guys follow Phil or not, but every time he does it and it comes across my feed, I post a picture of the beard because I'm trying to convince him to grow it. And although he says it's not professional, I tend to disagree. I was like, you can make it real professional, Phil. So now every time he posts a picture of the gym, I put some GIF on there of like a beard growing or whatever. And it's a running joke. So, all right, guys, you know how it goes. We got 1 hour. We've got 4 questions. And we got 3 guys that are known names in the industry. I'm excited for this episode. From what I hear, everyone else is excited for this episode. So we're going to get into it. First person I want to introduce is Weston winner of Wildfire Retics. Welcome, buddy. What's happening?
What's going on, dude?
Not much, man. Just sitting here trying to make some retics and sell some retics and have some fun and do it ethically and morally and all that good stuff. And then try and help, people out to figure out what that looks like. Because as we all know, there seems to be some confusion in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, confusion or blind ignorance. Take your pick.
Hey, that's why I've got you guys on here. I love it. We got to get all the opinions out, right? A little bit. So, well, hey, man, check it out. This is your time to shine, right? You get you get to plug, tell the people where you can find you, what you've been doing, how long have you been in it, and yeah, that's your point.
Okay, so as you said, Wildfire Retics. I started Wildfire Retics as a breeding program in 2017, 2018. So even though I am I'm very appreciative that you're referring to me as an old head in this. I have not been, in terms of breeding, I have not been doing it nearly as long as a lot of you guys. I think people sometimes get that a little confused because I was one of the first retic breeders to really hit social media besides Jay, and I grew a following pretty quickly. But as far as keeping, I've been keeping retics for a little over 12 years. I just didn't start breeding right away. That was one thing that I did differently. I literally had one retic for about 4.5 years before I really started diving into more. As far as where people can find me, you can find me on every social channel, although I have not been very active as of late. As I said when I jumped on here, got a 1-year-old son here at home, and I've been spending as much time as I can with him and with my wife when I'm not running around the country running my business. So
that's awesome, man. I remember when mine was 1, both of them. Now I texted my 16-year-old, or no, 15. He's 15. Earlier today, I was like, "Hey, man, when can we get together?" He's like, "Honestly," he's like, "I'm too busy for you right now." I was like, "Oh, well, I'll remember that when you want a car."
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I appreciate it. So, all right, guys. Next, we got Titan Retics is in the house. Keith Stambaugh, everybody.
How you doing?
What's happening, man?
Oh, just living the dream.
Yeah, you and me both, brother. You and me both. I'm gonna get to see you next weekend. So,
Yep.
looking forward to that. Oh, are you coming to Tinley? You're probably not, are you, Weston? No. All right. Well, I'll get to see the other two. All right. But all right, cool. Keith, well, give us a little bit of history, and then where we can find you. This is your time to shine, brother.
Well, as far as where you can find me, I am social media stupid, and I usually don't get on there. I really don't do what I should. I kind of just do my own thing. I've been doing it. I actually acquired my first Burmese python in 1979. Then I didn't do any breedings though till 1989, and then
Keith, you do realize you're really dating yourself with that, bro.
That's all right. That's how it is. Like I said, Joe, as we were talking, I said, when I was doing this, when I first started, there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't Google, there was Craigslist and Fauna. And my information came from, I went to a herpetology society in Cincinnati, and the first guy I met that was into this was Jim Harrison. And you may or may not know the name, but he's a Kentucky Reptile Zoo down in Kentucky. More venomous animals than any one place in anywhere in the world, I believe. But anyway, that's where I got a lot of my knowledge was from him. And I started doing retics. It's been about 20 years into retics. So I've been doing a lot of clutches. My first clutch was hatched in a 30-gallon incubator, 30-gallon aquarium. And when I had the second clutch, I was like, boy, what do I do with this? And I actually used cookie sheets, laid them in there, put the second clutch on top. And it's a bad idea when the first clutch on the bottom started to hatch. But you live and learn, and that's where I was at. So I've been around a long time. I got into boas, berms, retics, blackheads, anacondas. I've had a little bit in there. I've had corns, kings, you name it. But right now, I've kind of moved a lot of my stuff around, and I only have retics and boas. And I've got people that help me do all that because I have more than I should.
Yeah. I think we all understand what that means. Whew.
A lot of work.
lot of work after work.
That's right.
Oh, man. All right. So bringing in our third guest, guys. This man is of JK Reptiles. Guys, it is Jake Klotz, everybody.
What's up, boys?
Hey, how's it going, man?
What's up, big man?
It's going, man. It's going. Same thing every day.
Yeah.
Kids, snakes, and work.
Kids, snakes, and work, right? It's nonstop.
Yep.
But I get to see you next weekend too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Excited,
right.
man.
I'm stoked. So, all right. Well, this is your time to shine, brother. Tell us about you, how long you've been doing it, where they can find you.
So JK Reptiles on everything, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, I'm on all the Facebook, all the retic groups. Been doing it since, let's see, I got my first retic. I was 13, so that was like 98. First clutch, I think, was like 2010, 2011, and pretty much been breeding ever since. So there was a short window where I got out of snakes when I was like 21 to like 23, 24. I sold all my stuff, got into the car scene, and then kind of got back into the snakes. So, yep.
Yeah, I feel like both are effective ways to,
Spend a lot of money.
Spend a lot of money.
Spend a lot of money. Yeah.
As I sit out here and I look through the window at that big lifted Titan I gotta put tires on that thing at 500 a piece. I'm like, I love that truck.
They're fun.
All right. So we got some more people joined, guys. Appreciate y'all coming on. I truly do. Definitely reached out to each of y'all because of the respect and the knowledge that I think that you do bring to the industry and the community as a whole. And because these questions are not, they're not necessarily easy questions, but I think that they are questions that need answers and need a response out to the people to give them a little more guidance. Because like Weston said, sometimes it's, just willful ignorance. So in an effort to, make the community better, I think hitting these questions early is a great thing. And I think the podcast will move on from it, but I'm excited to hear what you guys got to say.
For sure.
So we're going to hit the first question. If you guys haven't seen it or done it before, 3-minute timer is going to pop up. You got 3 minutes. And we're going to bust through it. It's 4 questions. Everyone at the end, if you've got questions, if you got questions along the way for anybody, make sure you put exactly who you want it. We'll do a Q&A at the end with everybody, and we'll get going. All right, you guys ready? Weston, you're up first in the shoot, brother.
All right, let's do it. What's question 1? I know you sent it to me. I know you sent it to me, but I've been running around. I'm not even home. I'm in Florida right now, so I don't.
Hey man, this is awesome. Like, you know what? I like it. We're gonna see what you got.
All right.
So, question 1, right? How do you define an ethical breeder, and how do you personally ensure you're upholding those values and standards?
Okay, so ethical breeder. The first thing across the board, you're putting the animal's well-being above everything, right? You're putting it above chasing your breeding dreams and what you want to produce. You're putting it above making money. It's really that simple. Breeding, and look, I got into breeding retics not just because I love retics, but like a lot of other people, I like playing God. And retics are not the only animals that I've ever bred. I bred other animals in the past, not just reptiles, dogs as well. So I love that aspect of keeping, of husbandry, period. However, there's a long list of things I think that go into being an ethical breeder. And it starts with sourcing the absolute best animals you can to use in your breeding program to create better animals. And that's one of the biggest things that I see way too many people doing is using flawed animals, whether they have, and some people will say it's a minor cosmetic defect. Me personally, I don't care. You shouldn't breed it. Find the absolute best examples of the species that you can find, put them together, make better animals. So that's what I would say, in a nutshell, makes an ethical breeder. As far as what do, I practice what I preach. I don't just throw any 2 animals that I can get my hands on together. The animals that I bred were the absolute best ones that I could get my hands on. In a lot of cases, they cost me a lot of money, more money than some cases than I wanted to spend. But if it was what I thought was best, that's what I got. I also think that I've always prioritized the animal's care and cleanliness and just overall husbandry of my animals above everything, whether it's taking them to the vet. I mean, look, you keep a bunch of animals, things are going to happen. But that's why I've always said you shouldn't just constantly be buying more animals. You need to invest in your infrastructure, and you need to have a slush fund, because shit's going to go wrong. Shit's going to go sideways. you need to be able to take care of the animals when it does. So those are pretty much the main things that I would say in my mind make an ethical breeder.
No, those are 100% great points, especially that the building into your infrastructure, it's when you got little retics, it's so easy, and it's not that expensive to buy a rack system, right? But then it's when all of a sudden now you've got a 20 rack where you need 28-foot enclosures and you can't afford it.
Right.
It's a different thing. So I agree. Those are solid points, brother. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Keith, you want me to reread it? Oh, you're muted, buddy. Keith, you're muted.
Gotcha. You there?
Yeah. We got you. All right.
I
You want me
figured
to
Weston
reread
he didn't need my dogs barking over top of him.
No worries. You want me to read the question again?
Yeah, but no, I know what you're talking about. Ethical breeders and what makes a good breeder ethically, and what are the how do you uphold those standards?
Yeah.
I'm going to go a little bit different direction from what Weston he was talking about, the quality of the animal, I think, and that's important. But I also think that we got to talk about being honest, being truthful, what's fair, what's right. I don't really purchase any more animals. I do some trading, but I have a lot of my stuff that I've been doing for my own projects, and you got to keep the right ones. It's true. But I was thinking more along the lines of when we deal with the customers and the public and giving them the honest information about the animal. So if you take an animal in trade per se, and somebody tells you it is what it is, you got to make sure you convey that exact same information. I have so many people try to trade me something, and then you go back to the source or the breeder who made that animal, and you find out that the animal's not what that person just told you it was. And it makes it a problem for all of us when somebody's trying to sell something and it's not what it is. So we have to make sure that we convey exactly what we've bred, what the animal is, what the genetics are, maybe what the possibilities are, but 100% of what it is. And so many times you hear people say, well, it's possible this and possible had that, and it probably isn't. They're saying that just to make a sale. And as the breeders, we need to keep track of what we have and where it's at, and try to make sure that if we sell it, somebody follows up with us and we say, no, that's not what it is. So we got to be accountable for that. And if something goes wrong and it was our fault, especially for me, and I have, Noah Holland, and I got another guy named Rusty Burns. Now they have a lot of my animals and they help me do a lot of what I do, because I'm over capacity. So they have plenty of their own. So point being is they work under my name, under Titan's name. And if something goes wrong, I don't care what it is, we got to make it right. I've shipped out an animal before, and I had a project going and thought the animal was a male. Turns out it was a female, which was disheartening because I really needed it anyways, because there was only one. Anyways, I had to make it right. I only had one female at that point, and I had to give it to him. I had to give him the male and the female that I had. So bottom line is, if we have to give it up, we have to give it up. I made him whole. I gave up the entire project because I was wrong to begin with. And that was many years ago. I'm sure he's bred some good stuff by now. But as breeders, we have to do what's fair. We got to do what's right. And if something goes wrong, we got to make it right, whatever it is. And the guys who work under my name will do the same thing. And I don't care if we have to take a loss, but that's what we'll do. And as Weston said, you got to have that slush fund. When you buy these animals, you need a lot of cages, you need a lot of heat, you need a lot of space, and it goes quick.
Oh, absolutely. No, that's an excellent point. I like that, and I can appreciate that. I know Noah for sure. Can't wait to meet Rusty, but working under Garrett, I've done the same, seen him have to do the same and everything. So that's a solid point. Jake. All right, bud, you're up.
All right. Well, going to piggyback a little bit off Weston first. I think most importantly, it's the animal care, right? This is it's probably one of the most messy reptiles you could keep. It's constant feeding, cleaning. They poo and pee constantly, so you need to be up on caring, and that's number one, I think, especially as a breeder. Number two, I think smart breeding practices, right? Trying to look at the market, trying to see what's in. If let's say tigers, you're not going to make a whole clutch of tigers to sell because you can't sell them anyways, right? So just try to feel out the market a little bit and see what's kind of hot or in right now. Don't overproduce. I know everybody's got their idea of what overproducing is. Again, I think if you look at the market, look at Morph Market, you'll see if there's 100 OGS on there, probably don't really need to make more OGS realistically, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So that, so I think smart breeding practice is a big thing. Also, like support for new buyers and keepers. I think that's something I know Keith was talking about, right? A lot of breeders, they don't want to help or they just refuse to help. They make the sale and that's it. They want nothing to do with you. That after the sale support, I think, is huge. To be an ethical breeder, right? They're going to come to you. You make a good sale. Treat that person right. They're going to come back to you. I think that's a huge thing too. And also, just like having a positive community image, right? Get out there, get on all the social medias, producing content like Weston, like he said, he blew up huge on social media super fast, his content was awesome. I think that's a big thing. Getting out on all the Facebook groups, it's a pain in the ass to get out there and post your pictures, post your videos, reply to comments. But I think that's also a huge thing. We're in the day of social media, right? So I think as ethical breeders especially, we need to get out there and kind of be transparent with our animals, with our husbandry, our caging, all that sort of stuff. I think those are probably the 4 key points for me.
Right.
I try to do all that stuff. I try to get myself out there as far as my social media and stuff. I'm pretty active in all the communities, as you guys, I'm sure, know. As far as my breeding stuff, again, I'm not trying to do a lot of clutches. If I can do 2-3 quality clutches, that's really all I'm really shooting for. I don't want or need.
Let me ask you a follow up with what you brought up earlier, right? So talking about what's popular or trending. How do you balance breeding for popular morphs while maintaining genetic diversity?
That's a tough question. I mean, it's hard, right? Because a lot of the new hot stuff is expensive, and not a lot of people have the fun. Yeah, not a lot of people have the funds to invest or the time. I mean, those double, triple recessive animals are hard to invest in. I mean, what I try. You want me to keep going? My thing with the newer keeper, I get a lot of people ask me, what should I breed? What should I invest in? I try to tell people, invest in those recessives or double recessives. You can get some double heads for fairly cheap on a lot of projects. That's still better than trying to produce a whole clutch of tigers that are posset or motleys or, the single gene stuff that we really don't need. We get a lot of that byproduct stuff anyways from breeding. So, that's just my opinion.
It's making them understand when we say byproduct, like it's not like it's a lesser, but it's a part of what we're already going to get. So the production numbers are there. Not that we need a whole clutch of them.
Exactly.
So awesome. I love it. Great points. Thank you so much. All of you guys freaking brought great points. I'm going to tell so many people to come watch this that need it. All right, Keith, you're up, man. Number 1 on this one, right? Here's the question. What are some key factors that have contributed to your success as a breeder? And I love that you're going first on this because you've been doing it the longest and you can give us some history.
Well, unfortunately, when I first started, it was a lot of trial and error because I didn't have the accessibility to the plethora of media that we have now. And right now, I think what makes me more successful is we bounce a lot of ideas off each other. We talk about what we want to make. And everybody has what they want to make and what they want to do and where they want to go. And I have all those projects and I've been doing it for years. And like the ghost pied stuff, I got them hatching here real soon. So there's stuff that I have that I want to do. But what's made me successful is saying, Jake and I just talked about a couple of weeks ago about an incident he had. I've had it before where you talk about what you can do, what's a possibility. And just recently, Noah and I bouncing stuff back and forth on egg-bound females. And we both had one back to back and had good success by, doing some palpitating them and then soaking them. I had to aspirate an egg and then get the high humidity and then just doing all those different things. And fortunately, after several treatments, I got all the eggs out, and I still got 12 good, and I think he got 15 good out of 30 or something like that. So it's taking those ideas and making sure that you convey them, making sure you understand them, and saying, hey, I've seen this. I've been around a long time. I don't pretend like I know it all, but I sure have. I've seen a lot, and
Right.
I'll give that information out the best that I can and try to share that information. But at the same time, I'll look for Noah, Nick, Sal, Jim Hardesty, whoever it might be, and that's the core group of people I go to make sure that I've done everything I can for the situation I might be in with that animal. So. Biggest thing for me, success wise, is just keep moving. You have your hard hits, as Weston mentioned earlier in the first one there, where you got to have that slush fund, and you can't always just take that money and say, I'm going to go buy something different. You don't, because you're going to need it for whether it's a vet, whether it's for care, whether it's for a new cage, new environment, whatever the case may be. You got to be successful in your own environment, in your own workplace, my own living, which is behind my house in the barn back there. And you got to take care of that first. And if that's out of line, then you're out of line. So being successful starts from the ground up, and having the right caging, right setup, right heat, everything, whether you do ambient or whatever. I don't do ambient, but I do every cage individually. But I've also got giant tortoises in there as well. So that's a whole nother factor for me as far as keeping them warm. So it's
Right.
it's really a lot of trial and error, and just making sure you share what you've done wrong, because I've been wrong, and share what you've done right.
No, that's an awesome point right there. I think so many people, like, you see some of these guys that'll try to gatekeep it, and I'm like, no, like, I don't know. Not everybody has to learn first world or first time, be the first time to do it and repeat the same thing over and over again, the same mistake. Like, learn from someone else's. So I got it. All right, Jake, man, you're up. What are some key factors that have contributed to your success as a breeder, brother?
So this one was kind of hard, honestly. I think this was probably the hardest one for me. I was thinking about it, and I honestly think it's just being accessible is one of the key things for me. I get a lot of text message, I get a lot of phone calls, I get a lot of emails and instant messages, asking me questions on genetics, on breeding, on, oh, you think this is a good price for this animal, whatever, all the time. My wife hates it because I'm constantly on my phone doing snake stuff, right? But I think that's a huge part, like kind of, I don't know if it was you or I think it was you, Joe, saying about the gatekeeping, right? Like, we're here to help these people. We're not going to do it forever. So I'd like to see these people kind of grow and mature and get to a spot where we're at, someday. So I think being accessible to answer these questions is silly as we think they are. And at times when it's 2-3 in the morning, you're getting instant messages. It can be a pain in the butt. But I think that's one of the main things, is just being accessible to people. And helping them out, especially the newer keepers,
Yeah, and I mean, they definitely have a ton of like enthusiasm, and you love to see that. And then you're like, you sit back and you're like, man, all right, I need a minute to breathe, right? But they're excited, they're stoked,
right?
And so, all right, so that being said, what do you look for like in a good customer, right? And have you ever turned anyone away?
So I have, I don't do as many smaller shows anymore. I used to do some of the local shows around here. And, I've had these younger kids come up, probably my age when I got mine, 14, 15, whatever, asking questions and wanting to buy a retic, and I'll walk them through it. Again, I was that 13-year-old kid that bought a retic, however many years ago. Do I think every 13-year-old should get a retic? No. But I do think there are certain examples or certain individuals that could handle them. But I mean, I've turned away a lot of young kids, asking for retics and stuff like that. Mainly the younger kids, a lot of once I tell people I deal with mainlands, they tend to don't want to buy anyway. So that kind of weeds themselves out for the most part. But what was the second part that you asked?
Oh, just, I mean, where did it go?
I don't remember if there was something else you asked.
I had it. Oh yeah. It was like, what do you look for in a good customer?
I like the customers. Well, I mean, I like the customers that I want to buy the snake, and they kind of weed through the process. Have you had a retic? Do you know what they are? You know what you're getting into? So, but the people are going to buy. I don't have to check with my wife for this or that or whatever. But I like those customers, but I like the customers that ask a lot of questions. Want to know about the parents, want to know, what can I make with this, or whatever kind of questions they have. The ones that constantly are asking me questions, I do kind of like those people because they're doing the research.
Right. Nah, for sure. All right, cool. Weston, I got this one for you too. So, what are some key factors? And I'd love it, because like you said, with the social media side of it, maybe hit some of that point too in that answer.
For sure. So the first thing, I'm going to piggyback off of Keith's answer to the first question: being honest, being upfront, being transparent. That is absolutely something I think that's contributed to my success as a breeder. Is people know that I don't bullshit, that I don't hide things, that I don't lie or try to sweep things under the rug. Even when it's something that looks bad on me, I've still put it out there publicly, like, hey, this is what happened. I'm not happy about it. I'm not proud of it, but this is what happened. And that on social media, that transpired to a level of authenticity that people, I think people resonated with. People understood that it's not all sunshine and rainbows, especially with retics, man. It's just not. It's not with any animal keeping or breeding, but especially retics. So I think that's been a big part of it. And also just the fact that, so what you brought up and Jake was talking about with the gatekeeping, even when I got into this, like the Facebook groups were around, but it was still really difficult to get quality information from reliable quality information that you knew that you could count on. So the other part that I would say that really helped me is I got a mentor, and my mentor was Paul Lucas. When it came to breeding, Paul taught me everything that I know about breeding, and it's why I've been successful with breeding. I will also say this: I got Paul as a mentor because I spent a lot of money with him, straight up. Like I bought some high dollar animals from him, and exactly what Jake was talking about. Then I went and I was asking him questions. Hey, how do I do this? How do I go about this? What's the best way to do this? And because he knew I was serious, because I had spent money with him and because I was asking the questions, he spent the time to teach me a lot. Like I said, when it comes to breeding, he taught me pretty much everything that I know, that I didn't learn on my own through trial and error. So I think all of those things absolutely contributed to my success. And I will say this: I never chased trends. I never chased breeding trends. I bred what I liked and for what I thought was cool. In some cases, a lot of people agreed with me and they loved what I produced. In some cases, I held on to animals for a really long time, but before they moved out. But I still always stuck with, I'm going to breed for what I like and not chase market trends.
Oh, that's a good point. And I think that there should be, though, an understanding and a balance in that. Especially if you're talking to somebody who's new to get into it. I would say, if you're gonna chase the one thing that is like not because you're the one dude that likes that, right? That you need to understand that I'm not like I was dissuaded from tracing some stuff early on, and now I'm not being swayed and I'm going to chase it, right? I tell people, they come to me with ideas all the time, and I love talking breedings, and I try and give it to them very straight, at least on the super dwarf and dwarf side of the market. I'm like, here's this is where you're going to be at, from my opinion. If you really want it, then figure out how to make it better, how to make it different, how to make it the best, because it's what it's going to take to be successful, because you're hoeing a harder road.
Well, you are. And so point blank, when I got started, I had so many people telling me to go the dwarf and super dwarf route. And we all, I think everybody knows where I stand on that. Like it is literally the farthest thing from what I want.
Farthest thing.
I wanted big retics. I still want big retics, and that's not always popular. And I understand that limits my audience, and that's okay. But as far as I'm concerned, like that percentage of the market will always have somebody to come to like me or Jake because we breed for big snakes. That's
Right.
And Keith.
No,
And Keith.
He's
and
got some big ones.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. No, and I appreciate that. I just think it's our job to definitely make them understand it and not not like try and sell a pipe dream, you know? I like it.
It's selling the pipe dream doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the breeder, it doesn't help the customer, and it doesn't help the industry. Straight up.
I agree.
Agreed.
And to your point, Weston, the pipe dream is your dream. I like big. That's why I have sulcatas and David tortoises. I don't want a little water turtle. I want shit I can't pick up. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, guys. Jake, you're up on this one first, brother. All right. So what has been one of the biggest challenges that you have faced as a breeder overall?
I would have to say patience. Patience is probably my biggest challenge. I'm not a patient person. I'm not at all in any aspect of my life. I'm not patient whatsoever. And this is a patient hobby. You got to put the time in to get those animals up to size and age. Sometimes they don't want to go when they should. It's a long road, and keep in mind, when I started breeding, I grew up in the height of the prehistoric pets YouTube era. Jay was putting out videos every other day of him cutting eggs and getting eggs and doing the whole deal. So my first couple clutches, I get impatient, cutting eggs at 65, finger blasting them, pulling them out, the whole deal, right? Just not patient. I mean, it was terrible. As I've gotten older too, starting to get a little more patient, starting to just let things happen the way they're supposed to, and it seems to be working out a little bit better. But that would probably be one of the biggest for me. The other one, which is terrible, is I tend to get wrapped up in all the drama online because I'm online so much on all the groups. I have friends in all different circles, so I hear about it from everybody. That's probably the other challenge, I think, is this hobby this hobby is very cliquey,
Yeah,
and
it is.
You got cliques that go at it with one another. It's, I think, gotten better. Again, back in the early 2010s, it was terrible. It was very bad. I don't know. Keith probably remembers. I don't think Weston was around yet, but it was very bad. But yeah, I think those are probably the biggest challenges I think I've faced, honestly.
The click thing is always funny to me. It's like like Uncle Don said it best the other day on Jen's post,
Yeah.
If you just shut the fuck up and pay attention to your animals, it'd be amazing what you could accomplish. But
it's hard, man. It's hard to, it's so easy to get sucked in, my friends, if people are going at my friends, I'm going to defend my friends, and it just turns into a shit show, which I'm trying to get better at, but I still have that issue now. It's
tough.
Something I'm trying to work on and get better with, but it's
so that being said, 30 seconds. All right. So do you believe the industry or the community as a whole is in a good place? Or other than what you just listed with the drama,
I think it's heading that way. I think it's getting better as far as that. I mean, obviously there's things that we need to work on and fix, in general, but I think we're kind of trending that way, so hopefully it gets better.
I do overall think we're getting better, especially like just as keepers, because the young keepers now are like wanting to do these elaborate, beautiful enclosures, keeping less and more, right? Like my friend Abby, I love going over to her and Jody's place because, if you can let a 12-foot retic maternally incubate and have like a 90% success rate at hatching that clutch, it's pretty freaking good, and that means your stuff's on par, right?
Well, I look at Josh Hansen's. You see his on the Workshop Reptilia, man. His stuff is legit. That would be the ultimate goal, man. Big giant, beautiful enclosures like that.
Josh's is nice for sure. And I gotta make my way back out there to see it since he's got it all set up this time.
Yeah.
I've been to his place. I know what they were set up in his office space the same way. But now he's got the whole house built.
Pretty unreal.
I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go.
Pretty unreal.
All right. Let's see. Weston, What's one of the biggest challenges? Some of the biggest challenges you faced? Oh, you're muted, Bubba.
There we go.
There you
Biggest challenges I've faced. So I have a quick mouth. That's for sure. And I'm not always very polite, especially when I see people make just ignorant ass comments and or ignorant posts. And like I said at the beginning, there's an element where like being new and being ignorant is to be expected. But if you've been around for a while and you're still like you got your head stuck in the sand, there's really no excuse for that. And I have very little patience with that. So that is absolutely something. And I've probably let more people have it on the nation than ever deserved it or than I should have. But you know, that is probably one of my downfalls for sure. The other one for me, I would say, like in terms of struggles, there have been some animals that I've lost. And look, you know, I've said this for years. The more animals you keep, the higher the ratio is of things that are going to go wrong. And some of those things are going to result in fatalities. And it happens. And I've taken some of those really, really hard. You know, because I hold myself to a really high standard. When something goes wrong, I beat the hell out of myself. Like, I'm like, what did I miss? How could I have done this differently? You know, how could I have made sure that didn't happen? You know, I'm usually pretty good at learning from my mistakes, so I don't repeat them. But, you know, even things like it still hurts to talk about, you know, Neffy, that 21.5-foot giant, beautiful animal that I had, you know, that passed away because of complications from surgery. Like, you know, that one still eats at me. You know, and again, like, well, you know, what could you have done? I don't really know what I could have done, but at the same time, those are the kind of things that just eat at me. You know, and again, as breeders, we all make mistakes. Like, and I posted about this on, I guess it was 3 breeding seasons ago. I put a male back in with a female when I knew he was fired up. I knew he was almost in battle mode, and I put him back in with the female anyways. That was 100% my bad. He bit the shit out of her. He messed her up. She's fine. She lived. Cost me a whole bunch of money in vet bills, but that was 100% my mistake, right? And then just error in judgment. And I can admit that, but you know, those errors in judgment that we make as breeders sometimes have dire consequences. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. But it is one of those things. It's good to share the story so that, like I said, other breeders, you know, these young breeders, the new ones, it's like, hey, look for this, look for these signs. Look, don't do it. All right, you're gonna mess them up. All right, Keith, what's some of the biggest challenges for you, brother? Because you've been around a long time.
I'm just going to piggyback off of one thing they mentioned was, you know, Facebook, or, you know, posts and what people put on there. You probably don't see me on there a whole lot. I don't really make a whole lot of comments because I don't have a lot of good things to say with some of the stuff I see. And I don't want to get caught up. Jake said he spends a lot of time because he's in the drama. He's not in it, but he's got to make the post and he spends the time reading it. And I don't have time for it. Jake knows I've got some pretty cool stuff. People ask me for pictures. I'm pretty sad about putting them out there for some stuff that I have. But as far as what I see as a something that takes up my time and caused me a lot of, I guess, as a breeder, it's feeding. And you got to think about when you're feeding. You know, you have 2-3 clutches hatch within a week of each other, 2 weeks, and now you've got 100 babies to feed, and it's a lot of time. Then you got those stubborn eaters that you're going to be force feeding, and because I won't let them die. I'll keep force feeding them to get them going. I don't care if it's a normal. I help to come in at, you know, I put them together. I made the animal, so I'm going to do what I can to help it survive. It's a lot of time crunches. So just try not to get overwhelmed with all that, with all the stuff you have out there. You said the biggest challenges, you know, and Jake mentioned it earlier too, is people wanting pictures and wanting this and that, which is all good and well. You got to know the information, but don't don't ask me 100 questions and then say, well, let me ask the other half if I can have one. You should have asked that before you started asking me 1,000,001 questions. So I know people that have a lot of questions, but I have a lot of questions that they never intended to buy anything, and they're just tire kickers. And I still try to be polite to everybody that I can, but my time is valuable. I have a lot of things to do. I have a lot of hobbies. I have a lot of animals, a lot of travel. I work a full-time job, so there's a lot of time crunch. There's a lot of things that put the pressure on what you do as a breeder, and it's not all roses. And there's they say cleaning these cages. These snakes eat shit and do all that other stuff all the time. So you have a lot to do. So I guess that's one of the biggest time consumers I have is what causes me time, what causes me to be challenged, is taking care of all those animals, as babies in particular.
Yes, that's a wonderful point, because I don't think that people, when you become, like, if you decide to become a breeder, what I don't think people do is take the time to evaluate what their time is worth and work that into like the overall value of like what it's costing you, not the value of your animal, but what is it costing you. And that's a huge point, because you have 100 babies, stubborn eaters, you're having to go through, you're pulling 100 tubs, putting something in there, and then you got to go back through that at least one more time fully. So you're going through 200 tubs right there, or 200 times, looking just to make sure they didn't eat. If they drop, you're doing it again. That's one of the points right there. I love that. That's awesome, guys.
People need to ask themselves what they're willing to give up, because you will give up something, and
it is
like whether it's family time or another hobby, your sleep, because there's certain things you can't, like he said, your business, your job, whatever, you got to do that, right? So where are you going to give? You got to eat, you have to sleep some. So what are you going to give up to make sure that everything stays the way that it needs to?
It's a lot of time.
And my wife will tell me, I said, you just went down there to feed 10 babies. I did. And they're all the 10 that wouldn't eat. And I spent 20 minutes force feeding each one separately. So what do I give up? Sleep.
Yeah. No, I think that's an awesome point that I don't think is conveyed, especially when you have somebody that is new that's coming in and they're like, oh, I've got this little one and it's so easy and I'm just swapping this out. It's a little bitty turd. Like, listen, until you are pulling 40, 30, even 10 big animals, and like for Weston, pulling, if you had 10 giants, right? That is not, you're not coming home and doing all 10 in one evening, or you're not getting sleep. Like, it is so much work. It is an insane amount of work.
I struggle to get one rack done with 4 on a Saturday, because it's a lot of it's cleaning. You're moving 200-pound animals around. It's work, and that's not talking about babies. So yeah, your challenges are keeping up with what you have, and that's why I had also mentioned, I know my time was up, was I expanded at one point beyond my capacity, and then I trusted other people to take care of those, and those are mistakes that I've made along the way. So now I have what I can handle, and it works out well for me.
Yeah, no, I think these are all, man, this episode is making me so happy. There's so many good points brought across from each of y'all. This is great. All right, so Weston, you're up first on the last one, brother.
Okay.
So this is, what advice would you give to up and coming breeders who actually want to make this like a long-term, I don't want to say career, but a long-term commitment to breeding? What advice do you have for them?
So the very first point I would make is, if you want this to be a career, realize you're making a career out of being a social media sensation, not out of being a reptile breeder. There are very, very, very few people that truly make a living and a good living just breeding reptiles. The money's in the social media aspect. So that's the first part. As far as doing it for the long term, don't dive into the deep end right off the bat, especially when it comes to retics. We've all seen this. Dude comes in, dude or girl, doesn't matter. They come in, they buy a dozen plus retics baby retics in a year. And 3 years later, it's, oh, this one's for sale, this one's for sale, this one's for sale. And it's like, here we go again. Like, and I get it. They're addicting, right? But don't dive in. Like, actually sit down and think about what you want to keep long term, and don't try to buy everything you think you want to breed right now. Get 1 or 2 animals and start raising those up. I think we would all agree with this. Buy your females, raise those up, and when they're 4 years old, go look for your male, or 3 years old, go look for your male that you want to do your pairing with. Don't buy your male and your female at the same time and be sitting there feeding your male for 3-4 years, just waiting for, for a breeding to happen. The other aspect is exactly what I said in my first response. Always put the well-being of the animal first, like, period. That's just it should be your guiding principle. Is the animal's well-being should always come first, over your breeding program, over your personal desires. That's just the way it should be. And then really and truly, exactly what Keith said. Be honest, be transparent. Like, the more shit bags that we have in this industry, the worse we all look. Like, it's just that simple. And so it's not difficult to just be honest, be transparent, be upfront about what you're doing, and that automatically makes you not just a good keeper, it makes you a good human. And that's what we need more of in this industry. So,
all right. So do you have any kind of what do you think the market's going to look like in 10 to 20 years? What do you think the changes? What do you predict?
Dude, I think we'll be lucky to still be able to have these animals in 10 to 20 years, straight up. Like, with the way regulations have been going and everything else, I think and look, I don't disagree as much as I am steadfastly against governmental intervention in your personal life. I don't think it's a bad idea for people to have a license to own these snakes. I don't. Like, there should be some standard. Just like with venomous, these, it's a little different when you're talking about dwarfs, super dwarfs, like smaller localities than mainlands. But especially when you're talking about mainlands, like, you're talking about apex predators that have the ability to kill you. Like,
100%.
There should be some sort of standard that we adhere to. And I, like, personally, I wouldn't mind it. So.
Yeah, no, the difference between a mainland and a dwarf or super dwarf, I tell everybody, I'm like, I keep a mainland. I've got one. He's not even huge. He's 10 feet. But the strength difference between him and then I have a 50% super dwarf, and he's 10 feet. They're about the same size to look at them, but the strength difference is insane. The difference between it, and it will put you in your place. So for sure. All right. Keith, what do you have for those up and coming breeders?
Well, a couple of the points were mentioned on different questions, and Weston just mentioned one. Jake mentioned one before. But first of all is patience. You see everybody buy and say, man, it's taking too long. You're not going to jump in this and just say, oh, it's a moneymaker. It's not how it works. You got to put your time into it, period. So you're going to need patience. You're going to keep your focus narrowed to what you like. If you just say, I want a little bit of everything, you're going to be all over the place. And there are so many colors, so many genetics. Stick with what you like at first. Get that first breeding. Get that first clutch. And then see how you feel about feeding 30 babies at once, or 40, or whatever you get. And then now you got 60, you got 90, you got 300, you have 500. You got to multiply all that out. And then you also got to take into consideration, what's your food source? Hey, I've got this little snake and it's eating baby mice or adult mice, and now I'm on rats and I'm struggling to get rats. Well, now it's an adult. Where are you getting your rabbits? Where are you getting your pigs? Where are you getting your goats? Whatever it is you're feeding it, you got to have a food source. And sometimes that food source dries up. Got to have a backup. So I go through thousands of pounds of food a month. And so there's a big expense there. So you got to be prepared for all that. So this isn't all, I'm going to get rich. No, I do well. But at the same time, I spend a lot, and that's what it takes. So you got to have patience. You got to have a narrow focus. Read what you like. Understand that shit happens. Weston mentioned that too. You know, you can think you could have done it all right, and the animal just may not make it. No rhyme or reason. So you spent that money, and now you're gonna do it again. So,
Oh yeah. Been there, done that.
yeah. So, and like I said, yeah, he said it too. You got to have a slush fund. So you got to have a little way. You got to have a support system. You got to be able to back up what you're doing. And this, and again, and proper caging, all that stuff. There's money in the cage, money in the heat, whatever way you're going to do it, whether it's ambient or heat panels, heat tape, I don't care. So you got to be prepared to spend the money. You got to do a lot of checks. Me personally, I'm not comfortable without checking in my room twice a day. And even if I'm going somewhere. So fortunately for me, I do have 7 kids between my wife and I. She's got 4, I got 3. My youngest is is 1. He's 21. So I have the ability sometimes, if they live local, some of them don't live here, but they'll come by and chat. Now, Weston, I do have a 1-year-old grandbaby here. She's running around. She's been here for a couple of months. So I know what it's like to have a 1-year-old too. So it's a lot of fun.
I love it, man.
It is a lot.
All right. Oh man. All right, Jake, what do you got, buddy?
I mean, they pretty much nailed most of it. I mean, I think the big thing is, take your time, don't rush. Make sure you're asking questions and listen to the advice. I think a lot of people, they ask questions and they don't want to listen. They'll ask, I think a good thing is asking multiple people and see what works best for you. I mean, there's hundreds of ways you can house them, different feeding supply or feeders, heating, all that stuff. You can try different things and see what works. But the biggest thing is listen to the advice you're getting. With that, I mean, if you can, get a mentor or mentors. It'd be nice if you could find someone close to you that can come over and you can go over and help or learn how to handle, especially the mainland stuff. I have people all the time ask me. My work schedule is all over the place, so it's hard for me to have people come by. But there's people that have came by and bought snakes for me and wanted to buy snakes for me, and then I pull out one of my big mainland girls and they're like, I don't think I want a retic now, or maybe I'm gonna look for a dwarf or a super dwarf. It's when you see a big retic like that, it's definitely a eye-opening experience. What else? And then I think the other thing is, focus on quality animals, right? Like Weston and Keith were saying. I look at somebody like Shane, streamline his purple sun stuff so much, right? You don't need to go buy 100 different purples or albinos. Just go get some really good quality animals. Focus on those, and the breeding's going to happen down the road. You're going to have stuff that you can trade. You don't need to buy every morph right off the bat. You'll have good trade stuff, especially if you're investing in buying quality high-end animals, so that's the biggest thing is people jump in, buy, like Weston was saying, buy a whole bunch of babies, or even worse, go buy 15 sub-adult or adult retics and think they're going to make $1 million. It's not going to happen. You can make good money doing this, but again, a lot of food, like Keith was saying, he feeds 1,000 pounds. That's insane. I don't feed that much, but I can only imagine what that costs. It's expensive. It's an expensive hobby. It's an expensive, just everything is expensive with these snakes. Veterinary care is expensive, so don't rush. Take your time. It will all happen when it's supposed to.
Oh yeah. Do you got any predictions on what the market's going to look like in 10 to 20 years, or are you with Weston?
Man, I do honestly think I kind of have to agree with Weston. I mean, if we can, 20 years, I think is a stretch. I don't know if we'll be able to own them in 20 years. 10 maybe, but I also agree. I mean, I think a permitting system wouldn't be a terrible idea. I think it would be good, especially with the mainlands. I just don't know how you would differentiate how you're going to permit mainlands and not dwarfs. Everything would have to be probably permitted, which I can see being a pain in the butt. But yeah, I mean, these are giant apex animals, man. They're not for everybody. A small percent of people should really own these snakes. It's unfortunate, but that's how it is.
No, so I don't disagree with you. What where I really want to, I'm worried about with the permitting process, right, is how many, if keepers like such as yourselves, myself, that, other people that, we look to that are keeping it by the standard and everything else, if we're not willing to step up, and help make sure that permitting process is done within a way that's not done out of willful ignorance, because they, the people that, the deal, the people in the town that are, passing these laws saying, oh, you can't have something over 10 feet. You don't even know, like they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know, but they're doing it out of fear,
Right.
right? It is going to take people like us that are going to step up. If we're willing to give this information out for free in our time to make sure that we're doing something better for the keeper, if we want that to be the thing that's going to step in, then I feel like we got to be the ones that are going to step in and make sure that that's getting written in a way that is fair and impartial as much as possible in order for us to have a future in keeping these animals past 10 or 20 years. So there's a responsibility that comes down to us for sure.
And I think that's where having a platform and showcasing what you are doing on your platform and doing things the right way, that's one of the best ways to help with exactly what you're saying, right?
100%. It gives you a credibility.
Well, it does, and it allows you to step into that conversation, right? Because you, for instance, I've got a snake right now. It's one of my biggest ones. She's going to an AZA accredited facility. She's going to a zoo. She's going to have her own giant walk-in enclosure with a pond and trees and all sorts of stuff. I didn't approach them. They came to me. They came to me. They knew my social media. They approached me at a show out in Utah. They came to my facility. They've seen the animal. We're getting ready to do vet visits, which again, I have no problem with any of that. But because of the platform that I created, they sought me out to get the animal for me to put into their zoo, which,
right.
And I'm happy about it because the animal is going to live its absolute best life. My point with that is, like, if no one knows who you are,
yeah,
how do you help create positivity?
Yeah.
100%.
I think there's one thing that, when you talk about permitting, the problem we would all have is once you get permitting, and now you're talking about government officials getting involved in our hobby, you can see what happens along the way. So that would be something that would be a very touchy subject, and I can see them overstepping what we would say is a good guideline versus just crushing what we currently have to the point where now you permit, you got to have a 1,600 square foot house for your ball python and 3,200 square foot for your boa and so on and so forth. So permitting would be a problem, and especially depending on what city, state you're in. And I could see that there could be a use for it, but I could also see now you're talking about government involvement, and that's going to be a problem. So I think there's where, as retic people or snake people or reptile people or anything else, we all have to do our due diligence, do the right thing, showcase the things the right way, and stop bashing each other on social media and putting shit out there for people to record and put in a disheartening light of what we do. And I encourage everybody to stop doing that. If you got a problem with somebody, reach out to them and go from there. And then air your shit if you need to.
100%. 100%. I don't disagree with you there on the permitting. That's why I said, like, if it's going to happen, then we have got to do something to help make sure it's not. But then eventually someone will overstep, because if you don't police yourselves, somebody else will police you. We know that from history. So, that's the way it goes down. And then, you made great points at the end too. Quit recording and everything else, but hey, I don't know. There's recordings of me out there, I heard, so I'm like, cool, you're a fan. If you need to go to sleep to me talking at night, you go ahead, buddy. I'm like, whatever. All right, so we got two questions that we got pulled. So Jason, and whoever can answer this, but so what's the biggest change you've seen or experienced? And what would you like to accomplish to make things better, like, I guess, individually?
So, was that a two-part question? What was the first part?
What is the biggest change in the industry you've experienced?
For me, it's just the amount of people that, they're in this that you just didn't know they were in there. Because, again, I didn't I'm not a social media Weston, the opposite of what I am. The biggest change for me is, well, what I haven't done is I failed to change with that. So social media is definitely the way to go if you're trying to actually push or present your animals. So for me, it is social media. That's a big change because when I started, that didn't exist.
Right. Either one of y'all want to touch on it or not?
I think it's happening right. Sorry, Weston. I think it's happening right now. Just the push for less animals, bigger enclosures. Just all around better husbandry. I think that's probably the biggest thing right now going on.
I think that's a huge positive change.
I would second that. The only difference I would say is I see more people coming in as pet owners and just wanting a snake or two, whether a retic or two or whatever it is, versus when I got in, everybody knew that was coming in to be a breeder, like just straight out of the gate. They weren't coming in to be a pet owner. And that I have seen it in a number of aspects, but most of all my sales. The majority of the sales I have had, especially over the last 18 months, have been to pet owners, not to other breeders.
No, that's I totally agree with that point.
And I don't think it's a bad thing, by the way. I don't think it's a bad thing at all.
100%. All right. Jason, appreciate that. That's a great question. So Jennifer Valentine, she's got one too. So how do you evaluate how many clutches you'll produce in any given season? And do you have your pairings planned out years in advance, or do you play it by ear?
For me, it's years in advance. Because I got projects. So these are animals that I've grown up. I've got, I guess you'd say I have a vision or a hope of what the animal will look like. Because I'm not trying to produce what's out there. It does mean you're going to have produced several clutches of almost the same thing to try to hit that triple head or double head or whatever the case may be. So it's usually for anybody who's been in for a while, it's usually a planned thing that you're going to do so that you can hit the animal that you're trying to make and hope for the best odds.
I like it. Jake?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. I mean, I'm 3-4 years ahead, already kind of thinking about stuff that I hopefully make this year that I can breed in 3-4 years and what those babies will go to. I got a lot of downtime at work. So a lot of times I'm jotting down ideas of stuff like, oh, if I make this, I can do this or whatever. It's a lot of planning, and hoping like Keith said, that it all happens. And as far as how many clutches, at one time I had like 350 babies and I never want that again. I try to hand, 2 or 3 breedings, if I can keep to like 150 babies, 200-ish babies is probably the max I would want. So if I have 2 or 3 breedings that I know are taking, I'll kind of back off. I'll stop, pairing, and I'll just kind of see what happens, because I breed all year. I have clutches, dropping all throughout the year. So I can always start pounding those females back up and get them to cycle. But
right.
Yeah, I don't want 300 plus babies ever again. So
nice. All right. Weston's got a different view. I'm curious.
So I don't ever even want 100 babies again, straight up. I don't. Like at the last breeding season, I had 7 clutches that all went, and that I wanted all 7 pairings, but I had never had every single pairing that I did in a season take. And that season it did. And none of them were small. And I never want that. Yeah, when Jake's saying, nothing over 200, I'm like, dude, no. Like I have one hatchling rack now. It has 74 tubs in it. That is the average.
That's the max.
That's max. As far as planning things out, everything with retics is the long game. It just is. And so things are planned out. My focus the last 2 years has shifted pretty dramatically. And I put the brakes on breeding period right now, but I do still have clutches that I have planned out in my head. Some of which I'm just waiting for the animals to get to where I want them to be before I do that pairing. And others I could do it now, but I'm just holding off right now. So,
right. So I'll jump in on this last one. I think that, there's definitely a plan, and you should have a plan. If you're going willy-nilly at it, then you're not paying attention and you're not doing your due diligence as a breeder. If you're just throwing stuff together to throw it together, it needs to have a plan. And then you need, especially if you're going after something new, you need to be able to explain that vision to someone else so that they understand, like, where it's at and what you're going for. You have to be able to articulate it. So like for me, one of those things, I think that there's definitely long-term breeding plans, and then there's like shorter term where stuff is like your bread and butter, or like, that are easy turnarounds and you change those if you're gonna, like Jake said, if you're gonna go with what's trending that year, if you're gonna go that route, if you're gonna stay focused. And that's where I think each of you kind of bring a different mindset and a different perspective, which is awesome and has made this show great. That being said, I think also, like, if you're going to do something that, like Keith said, is not ever been done, I'm trying to do those multiple breedings, and so I've got a vision. I'm going after it. I want a blue hypo anery titanium that's backed by Madu, because the anery in the Madu is super blue. I think it's going to be the closest that I'm going to get to a blue and white retic. Like that's the selling point. I think that if I can get all of it to hit, do you know how hard it's? 1 in 164 or 28 chance? I forget which. And I have tiny little clutches. Do you know what it's going to take for me to get that? But that's the vision and that's the clutches. But along the way, I think that there's going to be some beautiful snakes made. Anery blue hypos, I think, are going to be phenomenal. I think that anery, titaniums in themselves are going to be phenomenal. But the long road to hoe for that vision, right? It's going to be a lot. So I think, in that aspect, I've got a long game, but I don't intend to make like money or have that viewed in that aspect. Like, this is going to be like small clutches, small female, right? The other stuff is like where I'm like, okay, these are the normal, what I would do for albinos and tigers. Those are the ones that I think adjust kind of based on what you're looking at for the year. If you do it, like I do, which is different than Weston or kind of like Jake. Those are the kind of things that I look at and I say, like, have a plan, but if you got a goal, you got to do the right thing. You got to get the best that fits the goal, because if you're going to chase it that long, it's a long time to get there. And you're going to have a lot of investment, a lot of heartbreak along the way. So, but that's going to be like, one of those long-term ones that's a little bit different than your everyday breeding.
Yeah. To your point, I had triple heads and big ass. She's a big female, and she gave only had one good egg, and that egg was deformed. The baby was. So triplet to triplet, and you need a lot. And I got one deformed egg. So
yeah, it's a big one. Oh man!
And
well, guys,
such is retic breeding.
That's the way it goes, man.
Yeah.
Hey.
There's another question that I see. That I don't know
what
from.
Jordan.
Yeah, from Jordan.
What is your favorite individual retic that you've kept, and why did you fall in love with it? Oh, this is a great one. I like this one. Thanks for hitting that, Weston. I missed it.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. I'll answer it because it's easy for me. And anybody that follows me knows this. It's my female diamond. I got her from Paul Lucas. He's a platinum motley het white snow. Which I didn't, neither Paul or I knew that she was het white snow. All we knew was she was a platinum motley. But we felt very strongly that she was both because of the way her coloring went. She's actually a reverse paradox. It's super, super unique animal visually, but it's her temperament. Like, that snake has been literally crawled on by hundreds of children at different expos and never once even like thrown a buck. Like, just the most laid back, easygoing snake. At the same time, will literally eat anything at any time. Not picky. So just a dream animal to own. I joke all the time, if all retics were like her, anyone could own one. So
yeah. To your point, Weston, I had one. It was I have one now, and I had one that also passed away. I had it for 18 years. It was just a white-faced tiger, but she was ginormous, and I could do anything I wanted with her. I took anywhere, and yeah, she was hard to move around. But I'm fortunate enough now. I have a really big Motley Tiger, that het blonde, and she's big. She's real big. She's a little over 200 pounds, and but she's as mellow as they get. Just lay the food in there, and you come back, and it's gone. But you can do anything you want with her. So I have a lot of cool animals, but that's my favorite out of whatever I have. I would call that's Miss Titan, and Miss Titan was not for sale. Miss Titan will not leave here, so it is what it is. And believe it or not, she's only given me one clutch of eggs, and that's okay. She's just here.
Nice. I got two. One, my favorite of all time was my captive born Noda House Sula that I had. I tracked that. I tried to get that snake for like 4 years. Finally ended up getting it. Produced 2 clutches with her, and she passed away shortly after. So that was a dagger. But currently, I think my favorite is my OG Sun Anthrax. Just favorite snake in my collection. I will never sell that snake. He's phenomenal. He's mean as hell, but the most beautiful. I couldn't even imagine that snake turning out any better than it did. And yeah, it's phenomenal. So
Yeah, like we've all got one. Mine's Peaches, my Annery Motley Tiger. She's 25 Calatoa, 25 Jamp. For honestly, I mean, she's dwarf. For a dwarf, I feel like she's awesome because she's 12 feet, but just the most beautiful whites. I mean, her head is stark white when she fires all the way up, but white, green, and gray. I used to bring her to Tinley just because she was so friendly and people loved her. And like, I had somebody offer me 10,000 cash. I was like, you're out of your mind. I'd never let that snake go. That is my baby. Like everything else. And I have ridiculous snakes. But yeah, no, everything else I could let it go as long as I get to keep her.
Yep.
So, oh man. Well, guys, hey, I really appreciate it. We went a little over time, but I 100% believe that it was worth it because you guys put out some great information. We had some great talk tonight, and some great questions, guys. Everybody that was in the comments that hooked us up with questions and just support, thank y'all so much. You make the Retic Rundown amazing. As always, it ain't me, it's the guests that bring you guys the information. So thank you guys again so much for carving, some time out of your week. Truly appreciate it. And so does everybody else. Guys, go support USARK Florida. Make sure that you're giving to them and, writing some letters, stuff, anything that they need for our help. And who else? Mike Johnson in the background, making it happen with Herp Collectors Network. You're the man. And we will see you guys for episode 13 in 2 weeks. Later.
See ya.
take it easy.
Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth, the wisdom is sound in the Retic Rundown. We're breaking new ground. From the jungles deep to the captive scene, Retic rule the world if you know what I mean. With patterns so bold and sizes extreme, in the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth and let the wisdom resound. In the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Unlocking secrets of the serpentine kings, sharing knowledge, stories, everything it brings. From breeders to keepers, we pull the strings in the Retic Rundown. Hear the echo it rings. Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth and let the wisdom resound. In the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Welcome, Retic lovers. Welcome, Retic lovers.